Hello and welcome to another episode of Sandy Code Projects. Today we're going to be going over how to change out a hydraulic line. The hydraulic line that we're going to be changing out is this one right here. The hydraulic lines that go from the pump come down along here right by the gas pedal. The problem with the setup is right along here, it cuts into two of the hydraulic lines. This ended up causing the hydraulic line with the tape goo on it. I had marked it with duct tape, which obviously hydraulic fluid and duct tape don't get along because the glue gets ate up. I had marked it with the tape so that I could find it later, and didn't mix it up with this one because this one also has a scuff in it down on the bottom right here. This one is worn all the way through to the point where it's dripping. You can almost see there's a little spot right there where the hydraulics were dripping from sitting, but the hydraulic lines run along the bottom of the frame in and around to the back. So back in here behind the rear tire, all the hydraulic lines come together at the manifold for the pump. The hydraulic line that I'm going to be changing is that one right there. I took the tag off of it so I could match it up with something. The numbers are a little off from the one I got, but as best as I could tell from the research that I did, the number is actually a slightly longer hose. The number for the line that's taken off is a L2505-16242. The only hose that I could find on the internet was a 16232, which, like I said, to the best of my knowledge, it's actually a longer hose, but all the fittings look to be exactly the same. This one right here, the one with the tag still on it, is actually the 232. So part of the problem with these Kiotis is they were brought here to the US by Kioti, and a lot of dealerships were set up, and with all the sanctions in Asia and with import tariffs and with shipping costs and COVID and all of that, prices have gone through the roof. People aren't looking for a small and expensive tractor like this, so a lot of the dealerships here in the US have closed. I used to have two within about 50 miles, and now I don't have any, so I couldn't go to the dealership and say, hey, give me this hose. I ended up having to find what I could on the internet, and Kioti doesn't really offer good parts and service through their website because they're not just made for an American audience. It's a South Korean tractor, so that's what we got. I'm going to start working on it. Okay, so the size on these is going to be metric. Most likely it's a 24 millimeter. I don't happen to have a 24 millimeter. It's not real common size for American stuff. I have a 15/16, which would fit it, but it's at work. So I am currently squeezing a large crescent wrench into there. It's not the proper way to do it, but it worked enough to get it loose. So I'm going to undo the line here, and some fluid will come out of it. Make sure when you do this that you have the tractor in the off position, otherwise you're going to pump hydraulic fluid everywhere. It just unscrews. Like I said, got a drip container underneath this to let the hydraulic fluid leak out. It's going to do that. There's hydraulic fluid in the reservoir and the inside for this this manifold. So then we need to take apart the other side, so that one will go pretty easy. All right, so once the rear connector is loose, you just unscrew it. Make sure you have a drip thing underneath this one as well. A little bit of fluid may come out. Not a big deal one way or the other. So now, since this end has a bent fitting, we're going to pull it from this side out, and then we're going to feed the new one under the chassis from this side going forward. I'm not going to show that. It's all pretty self-explanatory. There's little metal loops along the bottom that they ride in. So we'll pull this one out and put the new one in, and I'll show you that. Okay, so one thing I do want to show before we move on is the 16242 is the shorter one, and the 16232 is the longer one. The fittings on each end are exactly the same, it's just different lengths. The longer length will actually help me get it over there a little easier, and then I want to pin everything back. I had to cut a couple of zip ties underneath, not a big deal. I can put them back on once the job's done. Okay, so these are hydraulic fittings, not plumbing threads, not hardened bolts. They do not get Loctite, plumber's putty, thread tape, nothing. They're what's called a mechanical fit, which means that the taper inside of this and the push out on the taper on that is all that is used to seal it. The threads and the mechanical fit inside of the hydraulic fitting itself. So this guy goes back in and on and in position just like I'm doing it, and then once you get everything in place and tighten, you just crank down on them a little bit with the wrench. If you crank down on this too hard, you'll break the mechanical fit. You just want to tighten them down and go a little past snug with them. If you crank on them too hard, it's not good, and if you leave them too loose, it's not good. So you got to kind of find the happy medium, and your best bet is just to get them tight, and then fire up the tractor and see what it's doing, and then you'll know if you've seated the mechanical fit properly. So once I get this almost all the way set, I'm gonna put my wrench back in here and give it a little crank down, and then this side's done. Okay, so back here at the front, here's the new line. Just pop the cap off of it. Same thing at the other end, no thread sealant, no thread locker, no any of that. It's a hydraulic fitting. It's gonna be a mechanical fit. Don't want any extra stuff on there. Just gonna hand thread it on, get it up to snug, and then put a couple passes on it with the wrench. You can barely see in the video, but down below the controller you can actually see the forward control motion pedal moving, which is one of the things I want to avoid. When I'm finished with this, I'm going to put some zip ties down there to pull the controls out of the way so that it can't do that. You see on this, there's a thread sealant. There's a reason for it. It's because this is a quick connect. This is not set up with a mechanical fit. These fittings over here that are set up like this are hydraulic. So that point out on the connector, and then the curve in that's on the inside of this are what make the mechanical fit. So now that's on there hand tight, I'm gonna put my wrench on it, put a couple little pushes on it, and then we're gonna fire it up and make sure it's not leaking. Okay, with the tractor running, the only thing we're gonna do is make sure everything works right. So I'm gonna lift up the bucket. See no issue with that. Bring it back down some. Tilt the bucket down. Tilt the bucket up. So in this case, hydraulics work a little bit differently than, like, say, a brake line. A lot of people think that you have to bleed hydraulics, and in some situations you do need to, but in this particular one, it's just a simple pump, which is back here. That's hooked to a reservoir, the fluid will actually pump all the air out of the system. It doesn't always happen instantaneous. Sometimes you have a little bit of issue with it. If after cycling it for a while you can't get the air out of it, there are ways to bleed the system and get the air out of it. I'm not going to go through how to do that here. Also, I wanted to show down here, this is where the forward control is to get it up off of the line so it doesn't do it again. Which, as you can see there, pedals down and up. I've pushed everything over and moved this lower control line up along the side and zip tied everything to the spring for the return on the gas. So as you can see, here's the line that we replaced. There's no fluid underneath it, so that's good. Here's the line in the rear. There's no fluid underneath it. There actually is a little bit on the axle housing, but that's from when I pulled the line out. So that's the basics of how to change out a hydraulic line on the Kioti CS 2410. If you have any questions, please throw them in the comments. And please remember to like, share, and subscribe. We definitely need subscriptions, so please subscribe. We'll keep making more videos. Thanks.